She walked up to me screaming and pointing, saying I stole from her cart, then told my manager I cursed at her. My job was on the line. But what she didn't know, every second was caught on camera. Working at Target wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And most days I didn't mind it. The bright red polos, the endless beeping of the registers, the smell of popcorn from the little snack counter, it all felt routine, almost comforting. My name's Emily, and I'd been working there nearly 2 years, long enough to know the rhythms of the store, the coworkers I could lean on, and the type of customers who could either make or break a shift. That night started like any other. I clocked in at 4, grabbed my name badge, and walked toward the customer service desk. I always liked working there. It gave me a little control over the chaos. Customers came with returns, questions, complaints, you name it, but I had learned the art of smiling, nodding, and getting through it without letting anyone ruin my mood. My manager, Tom, gave me a nod as I settled in. Busy tonight, he said, glancing at the crowd. I just shrugged. Busy was normal. But then again, you never know what kind of storm might be hiding in that sea of people. The first couple hours passed smoothly. I helped a mom return a toy her kid didn't like. I processed a refund for a guy who bought the wrong size jeans. It was the usual shuffle of small annoyances mixed with little victories, like when I convinced an older woman to exchange instead of return, which kept our numbers looking good. But then I noticed her, the woman who would later turn my shift into a nightmare. She was in her mid-40s, hair teased high, makeup heavy, and she had that look, the look of someone ready to fight over nothing. Her cart was half full, and she kept glancing toward me like she was sizing me up. I knew instantly I'd be seeing her at my desk. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, she marched up without even waiting in line. She shoved her cart forward, nearly clipping the person ahead of her, and slammed a couple of items on the counter. "These are defective," she snapped. Her tone wasn't just annoyed, it was venomous. Like I had personally manufactured the items to ruin her day. I kept my voice calm, polite. "I'm sorry about that, ma'am. Can I see your receipt?" She gave me a smirk and folded her arms. "Lost it, but that shouldn't matter. Just give me cash back. I spend thousands here every year." My stomach tightened. We had clear policies. No receipt meant store credit, and even that only worked for certain items. I explained this as gently as I could, but before I could finish, she cut me off. "Are you calling me a liar? You think I'm some thief?" Her voice was rising. Heads were turning. I assured her that wasn't what I meant. I was just explaining policy, but she leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Don't play dumb. You think because you're behind that counter, you can treat me like trash." I could feel the heat creeping up my neck. Coworkers glancing nervously over, customers whispering. I'd seen Karens before, but this one was different. Sharper, louder, more dangerous. She wanted a scene, and she was getting one. Then she did something that made my heart stop. She turned toward Tom, my manager, who had walked over at the sound of her yelling, and declared loudly, "She cursed at me. She called me stupid." Gasps followed. I froze. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I hadn't said a single bad word yet. Suddenly, my job felt like it was hanging by a thread, and that was just the beginning of the storm. Have you ever had a customer blame you for something you didn't do? The air around me felt heavier after those words left her mouth. She had just accused me of cursing at her in front of my manager, my coworkers, and a half-dozen customers who were now staring like they were watching a reality TV show. No one had seen me lose my cool, but the way she said it, dripping with fake outrage, you would think I had hurled insults across the counter. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry. Finally, I managed, "That's not true. I never said anything like that." My voice cracked slightly, not from guilt, but from panic. Tom looked at me, then at her, his face unreadable. "Ma'am, what exactly did she say?" he asked carefully. The woman who I'd already labeled in my mind as Karen straightened her back like she was about to deliver a monologue. She looked me dead in the eye and called me stupid. Then, when I told her she was being rude, she muttered under her breath that I should just shut up and leave the store. "Is that how you train your employees?" I swear my jaw nearly hit the counter. She had painted this whole picture, complete with fake dialogue. My heart hammered in my chest. I opened my mouth again, but she turned to the gathering crowd and shook her head. "Unbelievable, this is why customer service is dead. These kids think they can disrespect paying customers." I wanted to scream, but I knew screaming would only make me look guilty. Instead, I looked at Tom, pleading with my eyes. He finally raised his hand to quiet everyone. "All right, let's calm down," he said. His tone was even, but I could tell he was irritated. The last thing any manager wanted was a scene in the middle of the store. Karen crossed her arms, smirking like she had already won. "I want her written up. I want a formal apology, and if you don't take action, I'll be calling corporate first thing tomorrow." The crowd murmured, some people glaring at me like I was the villain, others whispering that they hadn't heard me say anything wrong. I felt small, trapped, like I had been shoved into a corner with no way out. Tom cleared his throat. "Emily, step aside for a moment, please," he said. I nodded, my hands trembling as I stepped away from the counter. My coworker Jenna slid into my spot and tried to help the next customer, but her eyes kept darting toward me, full of worry. I stood a few feet away listening as Tom tried to reason with Karen. He explained the return policy again, offered store credit, tried to soothe her tone, but she wasn't letting go. She kept circling back to me. "She disrespected me. She insulted me. You can't just sweep that under the rug." Her voice carried across the store like a siren. Some shoppers stopped to watch. Others shook their heads and moved on, but every word carved deeper into my chest. I wanted to defend myself, but Tom gave me a look that said, "Stay put, don't make it worse." Minutes dragged by like hours. Finally, Karen gathered her items, huffed dramatically, and stormed toward the exit, but not before turning back and shouting, "I'll make sure corporate knows exactly how your employees treat loyal customers." The sliding doors closed behind her, and the noise of the store filled the air again, but my ears were still ringing. Tom motioned me over. "Emily, we'll talk in the office." His voice was firm, but not angry, at least not yet. I followed him, heart pounding every step, feeling like I was walking toward my own execution. Inside the office, he shut the door and sighed heavily. He rubbed his temples, then looked at me. Tell me everything exactly what happened. I recounted it word for word, how she'd skipped the line, how she had no receipt, how she twisted my words into lies. Tom listened, but his expression stayed neutral. I couldn't tell if he believed me or not. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Emily, you know I've never had a problem with you. You're one of the most reliable people here, but this kind of complaint is serious, especially if she really calls corporate. I swallowed hard. So what happens now? Tom hesitated, then said something that both terrified and relieved me. We'll check the cameras. They don't record audio, but they'll show whether you mouthed anything under your breath or acted unprofessional. If nothing shows, then we'll have something to stand on. The cameras, I had almost forgotten about them. My pulse quickened. Maybe for the first time since this started, I felt a flicker of hope. Do you think retail workers should have the right to ban customers permanently? I sat in the chair across from Tom's desk, my fingers digging into my palms while he pulled up the surveillance system. He typed quickly, his eyes narrowing at the monitor as the footage loaded. My stomach was in knots. I knew I hadn't said anything, but what if my face looked annoyed? What if she twisted even my expressions into proof against me? Tom rewound the footage to just before Karen barged into my line. The grainy video showed her pushing her cart around the person waiting, then slamming the boxes onto the counter. She leaned in close to me, wagging her finger. My chest tightened, even watching it on screen, but I kept my eyes glued to the monitor. There I was standing straight, shoulders squared. My face calm, at least as calm as I could manage. She jabbed her finger again. I nodded, leaned down slightly, probably explaining the policy. She threw her arms up, exaggerated, then pointed at me while shouting to the side. Tom paused the footage, looked at me. That's where she claimed you cursed at her, right? I nodded slowly. He replayed it, this time in slow motion. My lips moved, but only forming the words, I'm sorry, ma'am. Then, policy. I recognized my own gestures. Calm, open hands, not clenched, not mocking. He leaned back, exhaling. She said you called her stupid right here, but I don't see that. Relief flooded me, but I still worried. What if corporate asks for proof? They'll see there's no audio. Tom shook his head. Emily, the footage shows you standing still, calm, collected. Meanwhile, she's waving her arms, stomping her foot. You can literally see her mouth open wide when she yelled, if anything, it makes her look worse. I wanted to cry tears of relief, but I bit my lip instead, my heart still pounding. He clicked forward, showing when she stormed away dramatically, nearly colliding with another customer who looked annoyed. If corporate calls, Tom said, I'll tell them exactly what I saw. We've dealt with people like this before. I blinked at him. So you believe me? His voice softened. I've managed you for 2 years, Emily. I've never once seen you disrespect a customer. I'd have to be out of my mind to believe her over you. The knot in my chest loosened, but only slightly because I knew she wasn't done. Karen wasn't the type to let go. She had promised to call corporate, and people like her followed through, if only to feel powerful. When I left the office, Jenna caught me by the break room door. Are you okay? She asked, her brows knitted in worry. I nodded. Cameras proved I didn't do anything. She smiled. Of course they did. I was right there. You kept your cool better than I would have. That night I drove home still shaking, replaying everything in my head. I thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe she'd scream into the void of customer service hotlines and move on, but part of me knew better, and I was right. The next afternoon, Tom pulled me aside before my shift even started. He held a paper in his hand, his jaw tight. Corporate called. They got a complaint from that woman. She said you not only cursed at her, but also mocked her appearance. I froze. What, she's adding more lies? He nodded grimly. The good news is I already sent them the footage. They'll review it, but I have to warn you, Emily, corporate sometimes takes the customer's word seriously. They don't always look deeper unless we push them to. My stomach dropped so low it felt like I might collapse. I thought surviving one shift with her was enough, but this was only the beginning. This wasn't just about a rude customer anymore. It was about my job, my livelihood, my entire reputation hanging on. Whether people believed her lies or the silent truth caught by the cameras, would you have handled this, Karen, differently? The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. My chest tightened before I even pressed play. The voice was calm, professional. Hello, this is Sharon from Target Corporate Human Resources. We received a formal complaint regarding an incident with a customer. Please return our call at your earliest convenience. My stomach turned. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone clutched in both hands. This was it. The call that could decide whether I kept my job or walked away branded as a problem employee. My heart thudded against my ribs so hard it almost drowned out the silence of my apartment. When I got to work, Tom was waiting for me near the time clock. He gave me a reassuring nod. We'll handle this together, he said, but his jaw was tight like he was holding back his own frustration. He led me to the back office where Sharon's number was already dialed. He put the phone on speaker, then sat across from me, arms folded like a shield. The line clicked and Sharon's voice returned. Emily, thank you for calling back. We're conducting a review regarding a customer complaint. She alleges you cursed at her, mocked her appearance, and refused to process a return. Can you give your account of the interaction? I swallowed hard and began recounting everything. The cart cutting, the missing receipt, the return policy, the way she twisted my words. I spoke slowly, carefully sticking to facts. Tom occasionally nodded at me, his silent encouragement steadying my voice. When I finished, Sharon paused, then asked, so you deny using any inappropriate language or gestures? Yes, absolutely, I said firmly. I never cursed at her. I never mocked her. I followed policy and stayed calm. Another pause, then Sharon continued. Your manager has provided us with security footage. While there is no audio, it shows your posture and expressions appear professional while the customer is visibly agitated. We'll review the full tape, but based on this initial evidence, your account seems consistent. Relief fluttered in my chest, but it was fragile. Sharon wasn't finished. That said, we take customer complaints seriously. We'll finalize our findings within a few days. Please refrain from discussing this matter with customers or other employees beyond your manager. After the call ended, Tom rubbed his forehead. You did great, he said, but his tone was heavy. Corporate moves slow, but the footage speaks for itself. Don't let her get in your head. Easier said than done. The rest of my shift dragged. Each beep of the register. Each "can I speak to your manager" felt like a ticking clock counting down to judgment. I kept imagining what Karen was doing at that exact moment. Was she bragging to her friends about putting me in my place? Was she plotting her next move? By closing time, my nerves were raw. Jenna walked me out to the parking lot. You look like you've been holding your breath all day, she said. I laughed weakly. Feels like it. She bumped my shoulder gently. You'll be fine. Cameras don't lie. But the truth was, cameras didn't tell the whole story either. They couldn't show how her words felt like daggers, how the humiliation clung to me long after she left. They couldn't prove intent. They couldn't silence the voice in my head, whispering, what if corporate believes her anyway? That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Sharon's voice over and over. We take customer complaints seriously. The words echoed like a warning bell. I realized Karen hadn't just threatened my job. She had planted a seed of doubt, one that corporate might water with policies and protocols. For the first time since I started at Target, I didn't feel safe in my role. I didn't feel valued. I felt disposable, like one lie from the wrong customer could erase 2 years of hard work, dedication, and loyalty. And I promised myself if I made it through this, I wouldn't stay silent anymore. Do you think managers usually believe employees or customers first? 3 days passed after the corporate call. Each one stretched longer than the last. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt my chest seize, wondering if it was Sharon with news that I'd been fired, but the call never came. The silence was almost worse than a verdict. By the 4th day, I was working the morning shift when Jenna leaned close and whispered, brace yourself, she's back. I didn't need her to explain. My body reacted before my brain caught up. A chill ran down my arms, goosebumps prickling beneath my red polo. I turned and there she was, Karen in all her smug glory, marching toward my register with the same oversized purse and that sharp scowl carved into her face. This time she carried a cart stacked with items, clothes, shoes, a blender, even a stack of board games. She slammed them onto my counter, one after another. I need to return all of this, she announced, loud enough for everyone in line to hear. I took a slow breath, remembering Sharon's instructions. Be professional, be calm, no matter what. My hands moved steadily as I scanned the receipts she shoved at me. Some items matched, but others were missing documentation. I pointed politely. Ma'am, a few of these don't have receipts, and they're outside the return window. I can only process the rest. Her eyes narrowed. Are you serious? You're still pulling this stunt? She leaned in, voice dripping venom. Do you not understand who you're dealing with? The customers in line shifted awkwardly. Some pretended to look at their phones, but their ears were locked on us. Karen thrived on the audience. I could almost see her energy grow brighter with every sideways glance she caught. I kept my voice even. I'm just following policy. If you'd like, I can call my manager to assist. She laughed bitterly. Oh, I bet you would. You probably think those cameras saved you last time. Her lips curled. But cameras can't hear. You cursed at me. You called me names, and when corporate hears how you're still treating me, you'll be gone for good. Her words sliced through the air and my stomach knotted tighter, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. One moment, please, I said, then paged Tom over the intercom. When he arrived, Karen immediately launched into her tirade arms, flailing receipts, waving like battle flags. This girl is incompetent, rude, and hostile. I want her written up right now. Tom stayed calm. His tone was steady, almost bored. Ma'am, we've reviewed last week's incident with corporate and found no misconduct on Emily's part. If you'd like to return items within policy, we'll happily assist you. Karen's face flushed crimson. She sputtered words tripping over each other like stones. This is unacceptable. I spent thousands here. I will ruin her. I will ruin this store. You'll all regret this. She shoved her cart violently to the side, sending the blender box toppling to the floor with a crack. Gasps rippled through the line. A man near the back muttered, unbelievable. But Karen stormed off before anyone else could chime in. She disappeared through the automatic doors, the echo of her heels sharp against the tile. The silence left behind felt heavy. Tom crouched to pick up the fallen blender. Write up the damage report, he said to Jenna quietly, then looked at me. Don't let her shake you. We've got her pattern on tape now. Corporate won't ignore it. But even as relief trickled in, a new fear settled. Karen wasn't just angry now, she was unhinged. She had escalated from lies to threats, and the look in her eyes. Before she left told me one thing. She wasn't finished. And deep down, I knew the worst was still ahead. Should security cameras always be checked before accusations are taken seriously? After the blender fiasco, I thought maybe Karen would disappear. Her rage had been so volcanic, surely she'd exhausted herself. But 2 days later, the storm came back fiercer than ever. Not in person this time, but through every channel she could find. It started with a phone call. I was on my lunch break eating a granola bar in the break room when Sharon poked her head in. Emily, can I see you for a second? Her face was calm, but her eyes looked strained. I followed her to her office. She shut the door, then pressed play on the voicemail system. Karen's voice filled the small room, sharp and venomous. How dare you keep that rude girl employed? She humiliated me twice. I will be calling corporate every day until she's gone. Do you want your store dragged through the mud online? Do you want me to sue? Sharon stopped the message. There are 5 more like that. All from today. My stomach dropped. She's relentless. It's harassment, Sharon said flatly, but for now I need you to keep doing your job exactly by the book. Don't give her an inch. She wants you rattled. I nodded, though my hands shook slightly. The next wave hit online. I wasn't even active on social media beyond a quiet Instagram account for my cat. But suddenly coworkers showed me screenshots Karen had posted on Facebook. Public posts accusing me of being racist, of verbally abusing customers, of mishandling their personal information. Lies stacked on lies, and each one nastier than the last. Some people commented agreeing, others who didn't even know me, but a few came to my defense. Friends and even regular customers wrote things like, Emily is the sweetest cashier ever. That woman is lying. Seeing those words helped, but the knot in my chest only tightened. Karen was poisoning my reputation, drop by drop. By the end of the week, she escalated again. This time she called the store, pretending to be a lawyer, representing an aggrieved client. When Jenna answered, she demanded to know my last name, my schedule, my address. Jenna handed the phone straight to Tom, who cut her off immediately. Ma'am, we know who you are, and if you continue this behavior, the next call won't be to corporate. It'll be to the police. Still, Karen wasn't deterred. The next day, a Yelp review appeared. 1 star with my name bolded. Avoid this store at all costs. Emily is abusive and dangerous. She should be fired immediately. When I read it, I felt tears sting my eyes. I wanted to crawl under a rock hide from everyone. But then, something unexpected happened. Customers started leaving their own reviews. 5 stars, glowing descriptions of how patient I'd been, how I'd gone out of my way to help. Don't believe that nonsense. One wrote, she's amazing. That support lit a fire in me. Karen could scream and stomp and lie all she wanted, but she couldn't erase the truth, and she definitely wasn't going to erase me. Late that night, I sat at my kitchen table scrolling through the screenshots Jenna had texted me. I realized Karen wasn't just some angry shopper. She was dangerous obsessed. And people like that didn't stop until someone forced them to. I whispered to myself, if she wants a fight, she picked the wrong girl. Because for the first time, I wasn't just bracing for Karen's next move, I was planning mine. Have you ever seen karma happen instantly like this? By the time the second week of chaos rolled around, I knew waiting for Karen to get bored wasn't an option. She thrived on attention, thrived on drama, and every day she found a new way to stir it. I couldn't just sit there hoping corporate or Sharon would make her vanish. If I wanted peace, I had to take control. The idea started small. I remembered Tom mentioning all incidents were recorded. Security footage wasn't just for theft, it captured sound too, if you were close enough to the registers. My stomach fluttered with nerves, but I asked Tom quietly one night, would I be allowed to review footage from the days she came in? He leaned back, arms crossed, studying me for a moment. Corporate's already compiling clips, but yes, you can see them. Want to build your case? I nodded. She keeps saying cameras can't hear, but they can, and I want proof. So after closing, Tom sat me down in the security room. The monitors glowed in the dark space, and he pulled up the first clip. Karen's voice filled the room clear as day. Do you know who I am? I'll have you fired. You'll regret this. My hands clenched hearing it again, but this time I felt a spark of victory. Every word was caught, every threat preserved. We spent an hour going through more footage. Each time she raised her voice, each insult, each wild accusation. It was all right there. Karen thought she was untouchable, but the cameras never blinked, never forgot walking home that night. I felt lighter, almost defiant. The quiet street seemed brighter than usual. A plan was forming in my head. I wasn't going to fight her with anger. I was going to fight her with facts. The next morning, I started documenting everything. Every voicemail Sharon played for me. I wrote down the time, the date, the words Karen had used. Every fake Yelp review. I took a screenshot. Every Facebook post I saved in a folder labeled evidence. Jenna caught me one afternoon between customers. Girl, you're building a war chest. Exactly, I whispered. If she wants to drag me through hell, I'll drag the truth into the light. Word spread quietly through the staff. People who'd witnessed her outbursts came to me on their own. I'll vouch for you. One bagger said, she screamed at me too last year. Even a security guard volunteered to sign a statement. It wasn't just me. Karen had left a trail of misery through half the store. That night, while sipping tea, I thought about what my next step should be. The footage was solid, the witnesses ready, but I needed to hit her where it hurt. Not just defend myself, I needed Karen to realize she wasn't the hunter anymore. She was cornered prey. The idea made me smile for the first time in days. A trap. Not a physical one, but a situation where her own behavior would expose her louder than anything I could say. So the following shift, I positioned myself at the busiest register right near the cameras. I told Jenna quietly, if she comes back, don't interfere. Let her talk. Let her scream. The more she says, the better. Because now I wasn't afraid of Karen walking through those sliding doors. I was hoping for it. The trap was set. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I was ready to win. What's the rudest customer you've ever encountered? I waited that whole shift like a coiled spring, peering at the sliding doors every time they opened. My pulse spiked, then settled again. The store hummed around me. Customers scanned items, kids tugged at carts, but under the normal noise, there was a quiet. I had created a bubble of focus. The cameras watched us all the time, but now they watch with purpose. Around mid-afternoon, the automatic doors sighed open, and there she was. Same hair, same too bright lipstick, same strut like she owned the floor. She pushed her cart with exaggerated care as if she were staging her entrance. The line tightened behind her eyes, darting hunting for an audience. She held a stack of clothes and a return envelope like props in a play. Jenna gave me a look like, okay, then slipped away to her register. I stepped forward, took a breath, and put my best calm voice on the counter. Welcome back, what can I help you return today? She slammed the receipt down like a gauntlet and launched into a speech practiced and loud. This girl still refuses to help me with returns. She was rude to me last time, and now she has the nerve to be here again. Her words dripped venom, and half the line shifted to listen. I did what I always do. I smiled, asked polite questions, scanned items, matched them to dates and SKU. S explained our return policy. No receipt, no refund in cash, but store credit available for eligible items. She cut me off mid-sentence. I want to speak to your manager. I demand an apology. I want to see the district manager right now. Her voice rose theatrically. Eyes turned like a tide. Watching was her oxygen inside my chest, something cool and sharp settled. I glanced once at the camera positioned above the register. It captured her face, her lips moving every threat, every insult. Her hands gesturing broad and dramatic. I let her talk, watched her mouth as she lied. Then I let her escalate like I planned. You're lying, she spat. Suddenly, eyes blazing now. You mocked my clothes. You said I looked like a clown right in front of your customers. Heads turned even further. Her performance was getting better, but she had not expected the next move. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head. I reached under the counter, clicked the intercom to the office, and called Tom in a voice that sounded calm even to my own ears. Tom, can you come to customer service, please? He answered almost immediately, and within moments, he appeared wiping his hands like he had been stalking. He looked at Karen, then at me, waiting for the next scene. Karen launched into her crescendo sweeping gestures, threats calling corporate names, demanding action. Her voice climbed and climbed. I watched Tom's face darken as he listened. Then finally he said quietly, "Ma'am, we have a record of your previous visit and the CCTV footage of that interaction. We can review it now if you wish." She sneered like a queen, insulted and demanded he play the tape. Tom connected the monitor to the register display, and the store fell into hush. Even the beeping of distant lanes seemed to fade as the footage showed the earlier encounter, side by side with the current one. The screen captured everything, her exaggerated mouth shaping the words, her finger jabbing at me, her theatrical stagger when she left. I watched her eyes widen, then narrow, then flash with panic. She had not expected the footage to be reviewed live in front of her audience. She had planned to lie and leave, leaving chaos in her wake, but now the lie met its mirror, and the mirror showed only her. By the time the final clip rolled, she turned pale. Her bravado leaked away like water through a cracked cup. Customers who had watched her swagger now muttered under their breath, some shaking heads, others whispering that she had been over the top. A few people stepped forward quietly offering statements about how they had seen her act before her mouth worked once, then twice like a bird trying to sing and failing. She glanced at the sliding doors as if escape might save her, but the doors were just doors now. Real consequences were closer. Tom spoke softly yet firmly. "Ma'am, we have records of your calls, your posts and the footage. We will be filing an incident report, and we will be contacting corporate as well as local authorities if this harassment continues." The words landed heavy. She left in a flurry of scarves and fury, but it was different this time. The crowd didn't part in awe. They watched her go with a small, satisfied murmur, like a crowd that had seen a magician's trick exposed. The trap had worked, not because I shouted or raged, but because I stayed calm and let the truth do the talking. When the doors closed behind her, the store breathed again. Customers returned to their carts. Jenna came over and hugged me quick behind the counter. "You did it," she whispered. I felt a weight lift so large I almost laughed out loud. Tears pricked my eyes, but they were clean, the kind that come after surviving something brutal. Later, Tom told me corporate had been alerted. The evidence folder was already thick, with notes, statements, and clips. He said he had never seen a customer escalate like that and that he would be filing for a permanent ban if she tried to smear the store online. Now the post would only show she had been exposed, and that would be the end of her power. Standing there with force of habit. With the receipt shoot in front of me and the hum of the store behind, I felt a slow, steady confidence unfurl in my chest. I had set a trap, and it had worked. I had turned fear into strategy and lies into proof, and for the first time in weeks, I felt safe in my own place again. Do you think retail jobs are underappreciated? The next morning when I walked into the store, something felt different, lighter as if a storm had passed and the air was clearer. My coworkers greeted me with smiles. Jenna waved from the break room holding up a muffin. Victory breakfast, she called it. I laughed for the first time in days, but while the store felt calmer, the outside world was still buzzing. Karen had not gone quietly. Instead, she had doubled down online. Her Facebook was littered with long, dramatic posts claiming she had been humiliated in public, filmed against her will, and treated like a criminal. She tagged local groups desperate for sympathy, but the comments were turning against her. Screenshots flew through my phone from friends and even customers. People called her out, saying they had seen the footage with their own eyes or had witnessed her tantrums firsthand. "Lady, you embarrassed yourself," one person wrote. Another simply said, "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." For the first time, Karen wasn't controlling the narrative. The truth was louder. Later that afternoon, Sharon called me into her office. She looked more relaxed than I had seen her in weeks. She gestured for me to sit. "Corporate has finished reviewing everything," she said. "The footage, the voicemails, the witness statements. They're filing for a permanent ban against this customer. Effective immediately, she will not be allowed back in this store or any of our regional branches." I let out a breath. I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Sharon smiled. "And Emily, you handled this with more professionalism than most adults twice your age. I'm recommending you for Employee of the Month." Heat rose to my cheeks. I muttered something like, "Thank you," but inside I felt proud. Not just because I kept my job, but because I hadn't let Karen break me. The fallout spread further. Corporate's legal team had contacted her formally, warning her that continued harassment would result in police involvement. Word was, she had gone silent after that, maybe realizing she had pushed too far, or maybe just searching for her next target. Either way, she was gone from my world, and that was enough. But what surprised me most was the ripple of kindness that followed. Regular customers went out of their way to stop by my register. One older man set down his groceries, then said softly, "Don't let one bad apple make you doubt yourself. You're good at what you do." A mother with 2 kids slipped me a small thank you card hand, drawn with crayons that read, "You're the nicest cashier ever." I nearly cried right there at the register. Even my manager Tom pulled me aside one evening. "I know this has been rough, but remember this. People like her thrive on fear. The second you stop fearing them, they lose." His words stayed with me. At home, I sat on my couch with a warm blanket and a cup of tea, scrolling through the folder I'd built, evidence, screenshots, voicemails, video clips. Each one was a memory of stress, but also proof that I had endured. I thought about deleting it all, erasing the reminder of Karen, but then I decided to keep it not as a wound, but as armor. A reminder of how strong I had become, because life in retail is never quiet for long. Another difficult customer will appear someday, but now I know I can face them, not with fear, but with steady hands and calm truth. Karen thought she could take everything from me, my job, my confidence, my peace. Instead, she gave me something unexpected. She gave me proof that I was tougher than I ever believed, and for the first time in weeks when I closed my eyes that night, I slept without dreaming of her voice. Should Karen-type customers face consequences for false accusations? The weeks after Karen's ban felt like waking up from a long, bad dream. Life at the store slowly slipped back into rhythm. The beeping of scanners, the chatter of customers, the soft hum of music overhead, and yet for me, nothing felt quite the same. It was like stepping back into a room you had always known, but noticing the walls painted a new color. I found myself smiling more at customers, not the plastered, polite smile I'd worn out of obligation, but a genuine one. My shoulders didn't ache with tension anymore. My chest didn't tighten every time the door slid open. I no longer braced for her face to appear, and that relief was priceless. Jenna teased me sometimes. "Our warrior cashier," she'd say, as she tossed receipts into the trash. Tom even joked about letting me train new hires on how to handle Karen's 101. But beneath the humor was respect. I could feel it in the way my coworkers looked at me. A shift had happened not just in me, but in how others saw me too. One Friday after my shift, I walked home beneath the orange glow of streetlights. For weeks, I had been replaying the nightmare in my head, but that evening, I let myself remember the good moments too. The man who said I was good at my job, the kids who drew me a thank you card, the coworkers who stood by me. It hit me that, as awful as the ordeal had been, it revealed something important. Community is louder than cruelty. When people choose to stand together, lies don't stand a chance. At home, I pulled the evidence folder onto my laptop one last time. I clicked through the screenshots, the voicemails, the footage. Each piece that once felt like a dagger now looked like a trophy. Proof that I hadn't folded. Proof that I had fought back in my own quiet, steady way. My finger hovered over the delete button, but instead I renamed the folder, Strength That Night Over Tea. I thought about the girl I had been before. All this shy, soft-spoken, terrified of confrontation. I had always believed that standing up for myself meant shouting, fighting back in anger. But I learned it can also mean holding steady, keeping calm, letting the truth do the heavy lifting. I realized, too, that retail work so often dismissed as unimportant is anything but. It takes grit, patience, grace under fire. Dealing with people like Karen is not just part of the job, it's a test of character. And I had passed my test. Weeks later, corporate announced me as Employee of the Month. My photo pinned on the board by the break room felt almost surreal. I laughed when Jenna insisted we all take selfies with it, but inside I felt proud. Not because of the title, but because of what it represented. I had walked through fire and come out stronger. As the months rolled on, Karen became a name we whispered with a mix of disbelief and relief. "Remember her," someone would say, and we'd all shake our heads amazed at how far it had gone. She was a chapter closed, filed away in my strength folder. Looking back now, I see it clearly. She tried to break me, tried to smear me, tried to take my dignity and my job, but in the end, she gave me a gift I didn't know I needed. She forced me to discover my backbone, to trust myself, to understand that I was more resilient than I ever gave myself credit for. And that is a lesson I'll carry with me long after I leave this store. Wherever life takes me, when I hear the sliding doors open or face someone who underestimates me, I'll remember Karen, and I'll remember this. I am not someone you can destroy. I am someone who stands. Do you think this Karen learned her lesson in the end?